You're the only one who accepted it?
I'm the only one who accepted it. How rude of you. I think I'm here to talk about priestly celibacy, but I think perhaps that could be postponed till afterwards. I am actually a great champion of sex equality, and I think this platform fails in that regard rather dramatically.
Lugo is the future, and we are with Lugo. In general, we don't want, there are many people who try to show Paraguay like an isolated country, and Lugo with isolated government, full of problems, and they just talking about the problem. There are many problems. We recognize there are many problems, but particularly the Paraguayan press, the big press I mean, the television and some channels, they are misrepresented and they are constantly against what happened really in Paraguay.
If you haven't read it, I'd certainly recommend it to you. Excellent piece. And this book confirms the trend that Hugh has pursued through several decades now of presenting Latin America in a positive light, a mixture of idealism and deep analysis of what is really going on in the world and in that region of the world. And in this particular book, which is centered around the figure of Fernando Lugo, he weaves in the recent history of Paraguay in a very clever way, moving back and forth between what's happening to Lugo, Lugo's childhood, what's happening in wider Paraguayan society at the time, and also brings in material from the colonial history of Paraguay, the period immediately after independence, when Paraguay went through a very interesting period of state-led development. And so what you get is not just a book on Lugo, you get a book on Paraguay.
Hugh's book, but in this case for a particular reason I'd like to share with you. It's a much wider canvas than just Paraguay. I love Paraguay, I should say, and it's the country I feel most passionate about in South America, partly because I'm an Irishman. I explain that in a second. It synthesizes in a way which is, for me, unprecedented, the history of oppression in South America in the 70s and the 80s, and covers, in fact, the entire canvas of deprivation of human rights and the way in which this was interconnected in a brilliant and extremely focused way.
Well, thank you everyone for coming. In one way, I'm rather disappointed that so many have come, because George and I had hoped that we would have been able to spirit some of the few unopened bottles for our own delectation after the gathering, but the crowd and your obvious thirst has meant that our hopes are dashed. The idea my fellow author, Reese Diaz, and I had in writing this book was to cast sunlight on a country where politics was stirring after decades of deep sleep, and to examine, too, the state of play within the Latin American church, a phenomenon much commented upon, but rarely examined outside the ranks of the theologians and a small group of specialists. Lugo is the latest and the least known of the new generation of Latin American leaders who have risen up to the challenge of the comfortable consensus of yesteryear. Before him, any leader in the for this generation, any leader in the hemisphere, however bloody, from Stroessner to Pinochet, who demonstrated he or she accepted US dominance in Latin America, was declared to be a leader of the free world, and was proclaimed so by that elusive body, the international community. I've never found that body, but I'm sure it is somewhere. I'm glad to say that Edgar and I, and neither of us is a theologian, have worked well on our scheme even at a distance, and I'd like to pay tribute to his efforts, without which none of us would have been here today, and say I'm very sad that he wasn't able to be with us today.